What is up, folks? NYKia31 here. Going to be talking a little bit of Madden. This is a Madden 16 online CFM game that I'm using as an example, head-to-head online CFM game. And I'm going to talk about pattern matching coverage. As we know from Madden 17, one of the things that we learned is that they're going to be implementing pattern matching zone coverage. I'm going to talk about very quickly, very briefly, or as simply as I can, what that is and why it's important. Here I'm in a quarters package, three down linemen and one linebacker and a whole bunch of DBs. And I'm working out of the Carolina Panthers playbook for this season in online CFM. And, I try to play like the Panthers. That's just the way I am. So I'm showing a lot of cover four or quarters coverage looks. And here we have a 2x2 set, and the way pattern matching coverage works is that you're combining man coverage principles within zone coverage. You're not dropping to landmarks. No one who's any good, I should say, at the major college or NFL leverage NFL level plays, you know, landmark zone coverage. Very rare. I shouldn't say no one. I mean, you do see it from time to time, but most zone coverage is played now using man coverage principles within zone coverage, even at the high school level. Um, the old drop to a landmark, read the quarterback's eyes, drive on the ball, that's gone further and further by the wayside. Passing concepts are just way too sophisticated now to survive using that. So here we go. Basic rules here in a 2x2 set. You have your corners here. They're responsible for their deep quarter of the field. They're going to convert basically the man coverage on anything vertical, anything that breaks outside. And your deep safeties here, they have quarters coverage as well. And your curl to flat defenders looking to obstruct seams, jam and redirect. Got your two defenders here responsible for that. And your hook defenders here looking to drop to a depth, I would say, of about 8 yards and matching crossing patterns. That's mainly their primary responsibility in driving on anything underneath. Now, within that basic concept, there's a whole slew of rules now that you can implement. Like, for example, the curl to flat defenders on each side lined up against the number two receiver on their respective side. Basically, he's going to key their release. If the receiver breaks inside, he's going to widen his drop to the sideline. If the receiver breaks vertical or runs vertical right at him, he's going to reroute him either by giving him a good chuck or obstructing his path down the seam. You never, ever, 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 if you can help it, allow a free release down the seam. Ever. Ever. Let me say that again. Never, ever, ever allow a free release down the seam. So what we have here to your left, as you see the route combination, you have a drag and a potential vertical threat. He releases the drag here, widens his drop to the sideline. Now, the safety here to this side, he's keying number two as well. If number two comes vertical, he can stand flat-footed for a little bit as, he's relying on this defender to give him a good redirect, and then he'll continue to match his route vertical. If he breaks inside, he's free to bracket number one. The safety on this side, when that occurs, he now has to be on the alert for post. And the corner here, he even has the freedom, depending on how much you trust the player. He has the freedom to convert this to man-to-man. We used to call that a box call, where he would convert to man-to-man, And this defender here, he would widen to the deep quarter. So he'd follow him wherever he goes. It's kind of like a box and one in basketball. We used to call it a box call. We used to convert sometimes if we had a, stud out there, and we wanted to have shadow the outsiders, hit the best outside receiver out of quarters. We'd call a box call. It'd be man coverage everywhere this receiver went, and he'd widen, and he'd become your seam defender or seam dig post defender. But I digress. I'm getting ahead of myself. So what we have here on this side of the screen, you know, this is fine. He's walled off. This is me here, looking for crossers. Looking for crossers. I can live with that. That's fine. Here we have him going down the seam, and what I'd like to see here is a redirect, steering him outside, widen the guy's route. He gets in his way at least to slow him down, so I can, live with that. But ideally, I want to see him widen this receiver's route and then match. Before spilling back to the flat. Now, once he clears this level, this converts to man coverage. This is man coverage for all intents and purposes. He's got to take post, or square in, or vertical. If this receiver breaks out, then he's there to cut off, or potentially cut off any out, any curl. Good depth here. I can live with that. And you have straight vertical here. But because we don't have pattern matching zone coverage in this game, and we have landmark zone coverage, what ends up happening is this, and this is what caused this coverage to break down. You have guys flat-footed and not knowing what to do. And when you have guys standing flat-footed and not knowing what to do, they tend to suck down prematurely and allow deep routes to be completed behind them, which is what happens here. I'm running with this crosser. He needs to do a better job of finding work somewhere. He does an okay job. But because Harrison Smith has now dropped to his landmark and he doesn't know what to do with himself after he does that, he sucks all the way down for this square in. He should not bracket or look to bracket this guy this shallow. This is what? He's at about the 40-yard line. About a 15-yard route. If he was running a post, then he'd look to bracket. Because he's going to be playing with outside leverage, expecting help inside. He's got help intermediate inside here. And with me here. Because I'm more concerned with the deep crosser as opposed to the shallow one. I'll rally and close on this. But because Harrison Smith's programming ends here, he sucks all the way down. And that leaves the strong safety here one-on-one. And he gets an animation bork right about here. So far, so good. So far, so good. Bork's out right there. I think possibly a lead pass would may have caused that. And he almost gets a touchdown. If we had better pattern matching coverage, what would have happened is that he would have, right here, tried to really ride him outside, sink back, then release him to the safety. And if we have better player movement that doesn't cause borks on lead passes, he'd be right here to play over the top of this route. And Harrison Smith's one of the best rated safeties in this entire game. Harrison Smith would recognize, hey, this route's too shallow. Let me get back on my horse and bracket the post. So really what pattern matching zone coverage will do is make you really have to focus on your reads and knowing what you're seeing. Because based on the coverage abilities of the defenders, that's going to determine how well they match out of zone coverage, which I'm just hypothesizing. That makes the most sense as far as how to do it. And of course, their play record and awareness should determine how good they are at recognizing what route combos are developing. So that's a little bit of pattern matching 101 for you. And, you know, why it's needed. Now, if this was trips, let's say this was a trips formation, this was a solo side receiver, the most common adjustment you'd see would be a man everywhere he goes call, a meg call, where this is man coverage everywhere he goes, and this defender would lurk for any crossers, and you kind of rotate the rest of the coverage around the fact that you have man coverage here on this side. So that's the idea of pattern matching. Obstructing potential seam threats, never allowing a free release down the seam, and matching crossers underneath, and playing man coverage within zone coverage responsibilities. So, hope you guys enjoyed. I will talk to you all later.